It was late afternoon when the first snow of the year began to fall. Slow, serene, almost shy, as if it did not wish to interrupt the silence that already blanketed the landscape. The leaves still clinging to the branches were gradually covered with a white veil, and the dirt road, meandering through slumbering hills, became like a magical trail, leading not just to a place, but to an old memory. The sky, painted in soft shades of gray and lilac, seemed to bend over the world in a cold but gentle embrace. And each flake that touched the ground whispered, "Slow down, breathe, feel." There, among the tall pines, stood a wooden chalet, small, modest, but with a vast soul. The chimney exhaled a fine smoke that danced with the wind, and the windows, warmly lit from within, were like welcoming eyes inviting anyone passing by to enter, warm up, belong. Nature outside slowed its pace, and inside you could do the same. You could close your eyes if you wished. Let this image wrap around you. The snow falling softly, the distant sound of footsteps on the covered path, the warmth slipping through the cracks of the door. You have arrived. The car moved slowly along the road blanketed in fresh snow. The tires creaked softly against the soft ground, as if respecting the silence of the scenery. Outside, everything was white, calm, immaculate. The trees rose like guardians of time, draped in crystalline mantles that gleamed in the faint light of evening. Inside the car, the sound of breathing was rhythmic, steady. The heater's warmth filled the space with comfort, while the fogged window allowed glimpses of the world outside in gentle contours, almost like a dream. With each bend, old memories unfurled, not just of the road itself, but of the feelings it carried. The anticipation of arrival, the butterflies in the stomach before reuniting with old friends, and that bittersweet sensation of returning to a place that once was yours and perhaps still is. On the passenger seat, a blanket lay folded with care. In the trunk, a bottle of wine, a few red apples, and a simple cake made with love. It was more than food. It was a gesture, a way of saying, "I remembered you." Outside, the snow continued to fall, tracing invisible arabesques in the air. The day slowly bid farewell, and the bluish light of dusk began to take over the sky. In the distance, between the trees, a light appeared. Dim at first, but soon unmistakable. The chalet, like an old friend waiting on the porch. The hand holding the steering wheel relaxed. The body, previously tense from the trip, sank a little deeper into the seat. It was as if the road itself said, "You are almost there." And for a moment, everything seemed exactly where it should be. The chalet door opened with a gentle creak. The warm air, heavy with the scent of wood, cinnamon, and something baking in the oven escaped into the cold night like an invitation impossible to refuse. The first one to arrive entered slowly, removing the coat and brushing the snow from their shoes. Their eyes wandered through the interior with a mix of surprise and recognition. The light wood furniture, the old paintings on the walls, the same braided rug in the center of the room. Nothing seemed to have changed. Or perhaps it had changed just enough to still feel like home. "It still smells like our childhood," he said, smiling, as though speaking to the house. A few minutes later, the door opened again, and then another voice, softer, more contained. "You arrived early, as always." It was her, eyes tired, but with the smile intact. A long embrace, with no hurry. One of those that say more than any words. One by one, the others arrived. With brisk steps, laden bags, nervous laughter, eyes watering. It didn't matter how much time had passed. The bond between them was still there, silent, firm, gentle. Each arrival was a small reunion with oneself, because in every face there was a reflection of youth, of adventures, of promises whispered under the sky of winters past. Someone opened a bottle of wine. Another placed an old record on to play. And little by little, the chalet filled with voices, memories, warmth. They sat around the kitchen table with steaming mugs in their hands. They spoke softly, as if wanting to preserve the enchantment of the moment. "It seems time stands still here." Or maybe we've just learned to hear more clearly. There was silence, but not the kind of uncomfortable silence. It was a full silence of memories, of sweet longing, of presence. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but in there, time melted slowly, like butter on warm bread. Later, when the conversation mellowed and the room's light turned amber and soft, they began to explore the chalet as though traversing an old dream. Lucca was the first to rise. He walked slowly, his fingers gliding lightly along the frame of a shelf. He paused before a black and white photograph. "Look at this." "It was that morning when we tried to build an igloo." "Tried and failed completely," someone replied, laughing. Blue, Lucca's dog, lay near the fireplace. He breathed slowly, ears alert, calm eyes, as if he recognized the place, too. "He seems to like it here." "He feels it," answered Lucca. "Whenever we're here, he becomes more serene." Beside the back door, a small dog bed was still there, worn, faded, with the name embroidered, Blue. The same bed from the first Blue, the childhood dog. For a moment, everyone stopped. They remembered that joyful animal that ran in the snow as though every flake was a toy. He was the first to arrive here, and now the new Blue was here, too. It was as if time had turned full circle, right? Someone found a box of old letters, scribbles from childhood, rough drawings of trees and names. Others pulled a quilt from the chest in the living room, still carrying the soft scent of lavender and stored wood. Each object seemed to whisper stories. And Lucca, in silence, just smiled. Because for him, all of that was more than memory. It was a reunion with something essential that had never truly disappeared. It had only fallen asleep, waiting for the first snow to fall again. As the sky outside darkened, the chalet seemed even warmer inside. The fireplace crackled vigorously, filling every corner with that comforting sound of wood burning slowly. The yellowish glow of the hanging lamps cast gentle shadows on the walls, as if time itself moved more leisurely in there. In the kitchen, friends moved without hurry, like dancers performing an old choreography well known. One chopped vegetables. Another prepared a thick sauce, releasing an aroma of herbs and reminiscences into the air. Lucca peeled apples with nearly ceremonial precision, smiling to himself, perhaps remembering how many times he had done the same right there, on that very counter. Blu walked among them in slow steps, observing everything with attentive eyes. From time to time, he would lie down near the door for a few minutes, then rise and circle again, as though on silent patrol. Everyone noticed him, and every so often, a hand would reach down to stroke his head. No words, only presence. The table was set with thoughtful details, old cloth napkins, small candles in glass jars, sprigs of pine collected from outside. In the center, a loaf of bread still warm wrapped in an embroidered cloth. Who would have thought us back here together on a night like this? And it feels so right, doesn't it? Their voices were soft, as though spoken inside a dream. There was no rush, no need to fix anything, no urge to prove anything. Only the moment mattered. When everything was ready, they sat. But they didn't begin to eat immediately. They just looked at each other, smiling, as though wanting to etch that scene into their memories before a single bite. Blu lay beneath the table, near Lucca's feet. He closed his eyes. He sighed. And there, in that exact instant, the world seemed to pause, as though everything necessary was already there. Warm food, open hearts, and the comfortable silence of true companionship. The meal was served with slow, almost ceremonial gestures. There was no hurry, no obligation to speak. It was as though everyone knew that this moment was not just a dinner, but a kind of ritual. A reunion not only between people, but between times, old versions of themselves returning to sit at the table. Steam rose from the dishes like warm mist, scenting the air with rosemary, cinnamon, and a hint of nutmeg. The bread was soft, still warm. The soup, thick and gentle, slid down the throat like liquid comfort, and the laughter. The laughter came low, spontaneous, as though it had waited all year to echo again in that space. Lucca was the first to break the extended silence, his voice calm. "Do you remember the day we built that ice slide at the back of the chalet?" Someone choked from laughing. Another nodded with a nostalgic smile. I remember. I fell twice, but I still climbed again. Blue, lying under the table, let out a deep sigh. He lay still, calm, as though he understood every word, as though he remembered too. The conversation wandered gentle paths, stories from the past, small updates from the present. But everything said with lightness. Nothing urgent, nothing that squeezed the chest. Just what was needed to keep the warmth alive between them. At some point, someone raised a glass. It was not a noisy toast, nor an exaggerated celebration. It was just a subtle gesture, accompanied by simple words. To what remains, even when we go away. The glasses tapped lightly, almost like a shared secret. Outside, the snow still fell, slow, constant, as though covering the whole world with a blanket of silence and peace. And inside that chalet, hearts too were covered, not by silence, but by presence, by affection, by sweet memories that ask no explanation. It was a dinner made of longing, yes, but of those longings that do not hurt, the kind that hug gently and say, "It's all right." After the meal, there was no rush to clear the table. The candles still burned low, and the scent of baked apple lingered in the air. But the lure of the fireplace was stronger. Gradually, everyone migrated to the main room, carrying their mugs of tea, or simply their hands warmed by the glow of companionship. They sat on cushions, blankets, and worn armchairs, forming an informal circle, like in old times. Blue chose his place carefully, right beside Lucca, curled in silence. The fire crackled, casting soft shadows on the walls. And as minutes passed, the silence returned. But it was not empty. It was that special silence that only arises when there is absolute comfort, when there is no need to fill the space. It was Lucca who spoke first. I remember a night like this many years ago. It was snowing then too, and we stayed up late trying to count how many stars we could see in the country sky. He laughed, his eyes half closed in memory. I swore we could count them all. I thought it was just a matter of patience. Someone added, "And we believed you." The room smiled. Later, one of the friends told how they'd all slept on the porch once, wrapped in blankets, just to hear the forest at night. They recalled a mysterious sound that nobody could explain, and how they spent hours inventing stories about it. A rare animal, a forest spirit, or just the wind playing tricks. Each story was told with sweetness, not to entertain, but to warm, like a blanket of memories passed from lap to lap. Gradually, voices grew slower, pauses lengthened, and the fire, though still strong, seemed to follow the night's pace, crackling less, whispering more. Lucca looked at Blue, who slept deeply. He seems to dream beautifully. And then, for instance, everyone sat in silence again. But now it was not for lack of stories. It was because this moment itself already was a story, and everyone knew they were inside it. The last story ended with no fanfare. It was closed by a shy smile and a sip of warm tea. And then the silence. Not of the kind that demands to be broken, but that rare and precious kind that envelopes, that embraces like a soft blanket around the soul. The fireplace still crackled, but more softly now, as though it understood that the night no longer needed high flames, only gentle warmth. One friend leaned deeper into the armchair, pulling the blanket to their chin. Another closed their eyes for a few moments, hearing only the soft crackle of burning wood and the faint brush of wind outside. Nobody said a word, and yet so much was being said there. In the distant glances, in synchronized breaths, in slow gestures. Blue stood once, walked around the group, as though to ensure everyone was okay, then returned to his corner and lay down again, exhaling a deep sigh that sounded like a silent period. Outside, the snow continued its silent dance, covering each leaf, each stone, each trace of the day. The world was only white and quiet. Inside, the night settled. No plans for tomorrow. No urgency in the now. Only the present comfort of being together. No need to understand, explain, or resolve anything. Time no longer mattered. All that remained was the moment. And finally, even the moment began to dissolve, as if the night itself whispered, "Now, rest." The night was now completely dark. No sound reached from outside. The snow still fell, slow, invisible in the blackness, yet still present, like a gentle touch on the world. Inside the chalet, the candles had been extinguished one by one. The only light now came from the fire, which was preparing to sleep too. Low flames, red embers, deep warmth. The friends began to retire. No long farewells. Just soft glances, shoulder touches, smiles that said, "Good night." The wooden stairs creaked softly. Doors closed with a sigh. Blankets tightened. Breaths became slower. Lucca remained last in the room, sitting in the same armchair, as always, with Blue curled at his feet, already surrendered to sleep. He looked at the fireplace. For a moment, everything seemed suspended in time, as though that scene was a living painting. The fire, the dog, the window with snow behind. Then he rose, extinguished the last light, and went upstairs too, leaving the chalet bathed in a sweet, almost liquid dusk. Upstairs, the silence was even deeper, only the gentle sound of wind outside, and the faint sounds of a living night, the creak of a wooden beam, the rustle of a blanket being tugged, a sigh released in the dark. Blue settled near the bedroom door, in his favorite spot, protecting, watching, or just sleeping with everyone. And then everything rested. Time, voices, thoughts. The whole house yielded to sleep, as if even the world itself, for a few hours, had chosen to rest. And so the chalet sleeps. The walls hold silent stories. The windows, now covered in dew, reflect only the tranquil darkness of the night outside. And the fire, even in embers, still pulses a discreet warmth like a heart at rest. Inside, every soul rests too. Every memory finds its place. Every gesture made during the day becomes invisible comfort. There is no hurry, no noise, only the space between one sigh and another. Only the pause. Blue dreams peacefully beside the bed. Perhaps of snowflakes drifting among trees, or childhood laughter echoing within the walls of the chalet. No one knows, but it is a good dream. You can feel it just by looking. And you, who have accompanied us until here, may rest now too. Let the sound of this night linger with you a little longer, like the echo of an embrace, like the memory of a place that, even if you've never visited, always seems to have existed inside you. Close your eyes. Release the weight of your body. Allow peace to arrive slowly, like the first snow of winter. It blankets everything in white, in silence, in calm. It does not erase. It merely transforms, softens, embraces. For today, that is all, dear journal. You are safe. You are home. Good night, dreamer. Sleep well. And until tomorrow.